again today. I mean, I'm just wondering, where are the Liberals to comment on an amazing story? So amazing that even the very woke Age newspaper thought it was a bit rich and had to break this news, that 5 breastfeeding counsellors had been sacked by or had quit the Australian Breastfeeding Association in a fight over the use of the word mother. Now, these are volunteers who have been investigated for repeatedly commenting on social media posts that try to use gender-neutral terms instead of mother or breastfeeding, you know, using words instead like parent or chest feeding. That's a good one. And one counsellor, for instance, wrote, a very bad thing. She said, "I'm so grateful to mums who've taught me about normal infant behaviour. Without other mothers, it would have been so difficult." But one complainer said, well, look, this near obsessive use of the word mother suggests that others are not welcome in the Breastfeeding Association. But I just got to ask, I mean, am I missing something? Which woman who's given birth could genuinely be upset by being called mother? Yet the Australian Breastfeeding Association does think its language will have to be desexed to welcome mothers who don't want to be called women. I should add, though, that the association's boss says this whole fuss really was not about the use of the word mother itself, but alleged intimidation and bullying by using it, I presume. Joining me are Kosha Garda, entrepreneur and Sky News contributor, and Prue MacSween, communications expert and another Sky News contributor. We've cornered the market. Prue, your response?
Well, Andrew, isn't it ironic that we've just celebrated Mother's Day, where we really understand and appreciate how precious our mothers are, how beautiful. It's the most beautiful word in the vernacular, I believe, and how ironic it is that all these feminists, what a quandary they must be in, these woke feminists who fought for social equity and justice for women, are now in this terrible dilemma because, wow, we can't say mother. We can't defend the fact that women give birth and breastfeed, and this is somehow deemed offensive to people. And we have the Morrison government running away from it, when I would say most men and women watching this show tonight would find it offensive that we're even having to discuss this. That, you know, we are in this situation where we're capitulating to a few people, and suddenly, I mean, we should be marching in the streets about this, Andrew. You know, this is absurd, where these woke, loud people are trying to shut sane people like us who just want to get on with our lives down, and we should all
glad
be
to hear I've got that tick of approval. But Kosha, look, to be fair to the Breastfeeding Association, on its website it still splashes around the word mother like there's no danger in doing so. But you've got this incident here, and obviously things are about to change. Now, all three of us are very sensitive. Kosha, I know you're famous for your sensitivity. We are welcoming people. But how far should we really go to make mothers who don't identify as women feel welcome in a breastfeeding association? Is saying like chest feeding too much of a step too far in this welcome?
You know, I think that is the central question, Andrew. So what happened here is wholly consistent with what we can see in all sorts of organizations and institutions, large and small, everywhere, from the Australian Breastfeeding Association to the NHS in the UK to Harvard Medical School. Their OBGYN website has something about maternal justice being important for the advancement of birthing people. That's the language that they've used there for pregnant women. So, you know, it's easy to ridicule it, or it's tempting to sort of look at this as material for satire. But here's why it's important, and this is sort of getting to the question you pose. Words matter because he who controls language controls thought. And we know this. And that's sort of what this is about, where it's framed sort of as inclusiveness for certain groups of people or certain fringe minorities. And you know, that's fine. But what it leads to, it's sort of a slippery slope into controlling the narrative and shaping a school of thought right now, which is that ultimately what the goal here is about the ultimate collective, and that all of this is about equality being the highest virtue, like equalness, sameness being the highest virtue, so much so that we're all ultimately interchangeable, and anybody can be anything, anybody can give birth, anybody can breastfeed in this case. That's really what it's about, and that's why this matters.
Well, I think that is correct. And also, this whole idea of you having to change your whole language use because some people choose to take offence, I think is really too much. Now, this issue has caused a lot of friction inside the Breastfeeding Association, protests from former board members we read. One argument against this change is that if the Breastfeeding Association does change its language from mother and from breastfeeding to lactating parent or human milk feeding, a lot of migrant mums might struggle to understand or feel unwelcome themselves. Is that a point, do you think, Prue?
Definitely. I mean, not only migrant mothers, but most of us. I mean, particularly if you're either experiencing childbirth or going through the early stages of having had a child born, and suddenly you're having to worry about your P's and Q's and whether they're discussing something that is relevant to you. I mean, it's just absolute nonsense and it's offensive. And I just feel that the sad thing is all of these organisations and bureaucracies have been infiltrated by these lefty woke people who seem to have so much power and control over the rest of us. And as Kosha said, the narrative has to change. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's the weaponising of offence that really
totally
disturbs me a bit. But Kosha, can I switch to the Liberals' handling of Catherine Deves? They selected for Warringah. Obviously, they've got to know the issues that she's been pushing, unless they're completely stupid. But then they go and virtually hide her. Now, how do you explain this strategy?
It's sort of coming straight out of the playbook, and you can see it in all of those very analogous situations where, they do that, and then if they just trot out sort of the talking points, and then after that, if it doesn't work, sort of put the person behind a poster or a cutout, basically, of what they wanted to say, and I think that's what this is about.
It's almost like they want to be a little bit pregnant, Andrew, just a little bit pregnant.
I think that's right. Yes, wishing to strike but not daring, it's just so strange.